Things are changing in Atlas and Mantle, and it's getting worse for both of them. In particular for Mantle, who's getting the brunt of it, but with the information that we learn in this episode, I think it's going to get much worse for all of those involved. But before we get into that, I will say spoiler warning for those who have not seen Episode 7 of RWBy Volume 7, as I will not be showing the episode or any clips from it in this video. Simply images of the episode and offering analysis of the events that take place. I will leave a link in the description below so you guys can go to Rooster Teeth first, watch the episode there, and support the series that we all love. Now, the episode does start off by showing us that Penny is back in Atlas. Obviously very troubled by the events that take place, but she is safe. And then we cut to Mantle, where things aren't exactly the same way. Ironwood has put another law into place, a prohibition on assembly. Essentially, people are not allowed to meet in groups anymore. They're allowed to travel out of their homes, likely in pairs or individually, to accomplish their business, go shopping, go to work, etc., and then have to return home. No meeting in groups. So I feel like that's going to make it a lot easier for certain individuals to go about their business as well. Tyrian could easily pick off anyone that he wants to at this point. If people are only traveling in pairs or individually, it's free reign for him to do what he wants. There is a higher military presence, so maybe he can't move around as easily, but I feel like this might backfire, especially if Tyrian does start targeting Robin, which we know he's going to do based on the intro and Tyrian fighting Robin. But we do see some other people that we have seen before in Mantle, as they are pretty much running scared from the military and everyone else. We see one of the moms who we saw fawning over Jean, I think the one who gave Jean the casserole actually, holding her child and running scared from the military. We also see two other people, one male who we don't know who it is, may have seen in the background somewhere, but another one of the moms who is actually very significant, as she's running in front of a screen that is showing Penny attacking the people at Robin's party. One of which was this mom, actually. She was one of the people who was attacked by Tyrian, and out of two of the moms that we know of was attacked, but she lived. She survived, and she's able to run from the military, so presumably this is a few days after the attack, because for her to be running around after taking attacks from Tyrian and bleeding like she was, she must have had at least some time to heal. And we also see two kids hiding behind a dumpster, one of which I'm guessing is this said mom's child, as they share a very similar skin tone as well as hair color, so I would assume that they are mother and child, as these two children are two of the ones that Jean was guiding across the sidewalk, and the moms were there fawning over Jean. So I would imagine that those are probably mother and child. Why is the child hiding behind the dumpster? How did they get separated from their parents? Although one of the children may have been orphaned by Tyrian, but, you know, there's no confirmation on that yet, assuming hopefully the other mom survived as well, but we do know that there are at least 4 more dead from that attack based on the news bulletins that we see from Penny. But we then hear that a lot of people in Mantle are calling for Penny's head, essentially. Calling for Penny to be shut down, that the defender of Atlas has turned, or the defender of Mantle has turned against the people, and yeah, not really looking very good. Especially now that Robin and her happy huntresses are making moves as well. They are stopping pretty much any and all of the supply trucks that are headed to Amity Coliseum. We see that happen here. We see May stop one of the trucks, and we see her semblance in action. She can not only cloak certain individuals, but she can cloak an entire area. She seems to be able to create a bubble and cloak anything within it, which is a very useful semblance. And we also see Fiona, so Sheep Girl did survive. Tyrian didn't poison her. His semblance is not poison aura in the way that I described, so he can't actually poison people with his aura, but I still think it's kind of poison aura in the fact that it affects other aura. I made an entire video on that, you can go watch that there. But Fiona is alive and has a very interesting semblance. She put her hand on the vehicle and essentially absorbed all of the vehicle, all of the inorganic material that was there into her aura, it seemed. It seems like her aura, or at least her semblance, allows her aura to create essentially a pocket dimension that can store inorganic material. That is an insane ability to have. Holy crap. I didn't realize that Semblance could do something to that caliber, like creating a pocket dimension. And we know that she's not just storing the raw materials itself, because these supplies are being used to repair Mantle and are redistributed throughout Mantle. So presumably she can suck anything up, even though it looks like it's all disintegrating. She can spit it out the exact same as it was, or maybe they just need the raw material so that they can melt it down and repair the wall at Mantle. I really am interested to know how her semblance works, whether everything is completely disintegrated and then re-put back into the exact same form it was in before, or if it is just broken down into its raw molecules. Because that could be very interesting and useful if either way is possible. So, yeah, I want to know more about this. I might make an actual video on that later. But then we cut to Ironwood's office, and Ironwood no happy. He is very upset, and he says actually what this episode is named for. The worst case scenario. More people are dead, Penny is framed, and Jacques is on the council. Not to mention Robin is stealing supplies meant for Amity, so the entire project is stalled. Now, I don't think it's worst case scenario. Salem isn't there yet, but of course Ironwood doesn't know that. At the very least, someone in this episode did not say the fabled words of, well, at least it can't get worse, because, oh, it 100% can. Salem could show up, not to mention Hazel, more people thrown into the fray. There's also Cinder and Neo going to be thrown in there. So yeah, I think another maiden in the city of Atlas and the city of Mantle wreaking havoc would definitely make things worse. But yeah, anyways, he's very upset by all of this, and apparently there is one solution that he can think of and is almost prepared to do. That is declaring martial law. For those who may not be aware, essentially that means all current laws are completely invalid and the military gets to put in place their own laws, which seems like is already kinda happening with the prohibition on assembly and the curfews being put in place, etc., but it could get a lot worse. Essentially, the military would have free reign at that point to declare their own laws, and that would just not end well for the people of Mantle. But Ironwood is thinking in the situation of the many versus the few. You know, this communications tower will help the entire world, but should I care about the feelings of a few city blocks? Well, yes, because Nora actually is not having any of this. She says the people of Mantle are bearing all of this burden, not just part of it, all of it. It's not fair to them, and RWBy points out now or a little bit later that this is exactly what Salem wants. She wants everyone to be divided, and it's obvious Atlas is the next target because Tyrian is there. And we find out a little bit of history about Tyrian. He came from Anima, at least before he joined Salem's faction. I still think he was born in Vacuo, but apparently he was on Anima and is a known serial killer. Surprise, surprise. And apparently someone did capture him. We see a little report, and upon reading that report, he was captured, and one, I think, Commander F. Pickerel was his name, he said, we need more troops to guard his ship, because, well, he's going to try to escape. But no one listened to him, and the guy was taken completely off of the project, etc., and some captain was put in charge of delivering him to the prison, wherever that may be, and they flew through an area that supposedly had little to no Grimm activity, but lo and behold, Grimm attacked, and Tyrian was able to escape. And in that communications that were recorded, or that at least until it stopped recording, the captain of the ship was gravely wounded and said, "What are you? What are you?" And the last thing they heard was Tyrian saying, "Beautiful." So Salem herself was there, leading Grimm to attack this ship and retrieve Tyrian. Salem knew about Tyrian before this. Someone put her on that path to find Tyrian, that he would be useful, that she could put him to use, and this was the point at which Tyrian started worshipping Salem, as, you know, he just discovered her existence, etc. But the fact that she could control Grimm and wreak so much havoc, he absolutely loved. Now, I'm wondering whether it was Watts who put Salem on the path to find Tyrian or what have you, but still, Salem came to Atlas herself to get Tyrian. That's very interesting. And at that point, they say, well, we can make that public and, clear Penny's name. But, telling the public that there's a serial killer out there, that the military has no idea where he is, etc., would just cause more panic. Nora speaks up again, saying she's tired of all these secrets, but there's nothing really that they can do. If they tell people about Amity Coliseum, Salem's just going to target that and ruin all their plans. If they tell people about Salem, everyone is going to fall to the Grimm because they won't be prepared for it yet. I still feel as though they won't be prepared for the full brunt of anything anyways, but, at this point they're not quite aware of that. And Ironwood then says, for right now, we need to capture Robin Hill. We can offer her a deal if she can help get Mantle on our side, but that needs to be our focus, as well as those who aren't working on Robin need to find Tyrian, who he's working with, everything about him, where he's located, etc. And this opens up to a very interesting scene where Ironwood says, "Understood?" Of course, Clover and Winter respond, "Yes, sir," because they are part of the military. So does Wren, though. Wren, what is going on? I made a video saying that it was because of the emotions around Mantle and Atlas that are affecting Wren and causing him to be so focused on the mission and everything, but now it seems like Wren almost wants to be part of the military, that he can have that directed focus or something along those lines. I really hope we get an explanation on this, as it seems like Nora and Wren still didn't really have their talk or even address the kiss that they had, presumably a few days before, so that's really, really interesting to me. And then we cut to Blake and Yang as they are in the back of one of the cargo trucks or supply trucks, and they're guarding it, along with Clover and other people who are guarding other trucks, and they're waiting to ambush Robin. Now, we get a little bit of a conversation between Blake and Yang, as Yang is saying, we probably should have told Ironwood about all of this before things got this bad. But Blake disagrees. Ironwood is prone to overreacting, what with all the laws put in place and the military presence, etc. And they start discussing as to the choices that were remaining to him, that there weren't probably many good choices left, that, it's getting to the point where how much are we going to have to do for what's right? And they address very briefly how they have had to take lives in the past, meaning, of course, Adam. And Blake doesn't want to get to that point again where she's forced to have to do something like that. She's not very happy about having to ambush a huntress who's only trying to do what's right, so they both decide that they aren't going to do that. And then we cut to Pietro, Penny, RWBy, and Weiss as they are in Pietro's lab in Atlas. And they're retrieving Penny's visual data. So they'll at least be able to prove her innocence that way, but the damage has already been done. There's not really much that they can do otherwise. And we see behind Pietro the video of Penny attacking the civilians is playing again. We see that it says 4 more attendees dead, and we see also the image of the mom, who did survive, that we saw at the beginning of this episode, as she's laying on the floor underneath where Penny is attacking. And Pietro is talking about someone hacking the Mantle security system, as all of this footage is from Penny defending Mantle, but someone had access to it. And luckily, Atlas is on an upgraded security system. But Weiss is asking the real important questions, that how exactly would someone get access to Atlas's security system? Oh, well, Ironwood has access, the council has access. Wonder who just got on the council who might start to cause some trouble with that. But also people who are in security and safety, as well as those who are the heads of sewage maintenance and heating, etc. And Weiss starts getting suspicious. Well, the SDC has close ties to the heating company in Atlas, so But also, Jacques is now on the council. Watts is in contact with Jacques, who helped Jacques get there. So I'm pretty sure Watts is going to use Jacques to get access to Atlas's security and blame it all on Jacques, let Jacques take the fall, which will be satisfying. However, Atlas is screwed. Essentially. But RWBy then tries to give Pietro a little bit of solace as he seems to be suffering. He's coughing and seems to maybe have some sort of sickness. Luckily, Maria has been there helping him for the past couple weeks, so that's where Maria has been all this time. Glad to see her again this episode, as we haven't seen her since episode 1. But if Penny's shut down again, well, you can just restart her again after all this is blown by, right? Well, not exactly. There's a reason that Penny is the only one of her kind. As I'm guessing a lot of us already suspected, her aura isn't exactly completely synthetic. Pietro was part of a science team, who he shows us a picture of. One person's face is conveniently hidden behind his thumb, but I'm sure it's not important. Now, his team was tasked with developing the next step in the defense of Atlas. Everyone took more logical approaches. Pietro wanted a defender with a soul. So that pushed him to develop the Penny Project, something that Ironwood really liked as well. And we see what exactly Pietro did to create Penny. His aura has been used to fuel pennies. He has used parts of his own aura, and we see that there are just burned holes, it seems, almost, in his aura. That must be incredibly painful, I would imagine. Aura is the physical manifestation of one's soul. Pietro has been giving parts of his soul to Penny, and every time she is destroyed and needs to be rebuilt, it takes a little more away from him. So at least we know that he's had to rebuild her 2 times already. Once went with the initial build, and the second time with after Amity Coliseum. They were able to recover her core. I don't know if that means her aura was intact at that point, but it sounds as though Pietro needed to sacrifice more of his aura to restore Penny at this point. Now, this does not bode well, as then Pietro moves his thumb away, and that one person that he was hiding behind his thumb in the picture is Watts. And considering Ironwood chose Pietro's project over everyone else's, means that Watts, his project, was not chosen either. And in that picture, he looks like he hates Pietro. This does not bode well for Pietro. I think Watts is going to target him. That's almost a for sure thing that's going to happen. Now, whether it's just to get his technology, to get his hands on the Penny Project so that Salem can start sacrificing any humans that she happens to imprison to create more pennies that will be completely subservient to her, or what have you, that might be the case, or whether Watts probably did work on the Penny Project, so maybe he actually will take control of Penny or find a way to shut her down. But based on all of this information, I think that well, of course Watts is going to target Pietro, but that it's going to result in something happening to Penny. And Pietro might end up sacrificing his life to save Penny. I feel real bad for the guy, because Pietro wants nothing but the best for Atlas and the people of the entire kingdom. But he's been put in a tough spot, and I feel like this man needs to be protected and needs to live out the rest of his days in peace, but I don't think that's going to happen now, unfortunately. We then cut to Blake and Yang as they, I guess kind of ambush Robin as she opens up the back of the truck, and they're just there. You know, they have their hands up and everything, like, we don't want to fight, but still kind of an ambush as she didn't expect it. Robin, of course, takes off, and they pursue her, and they do catch up to her. But we find out here what Robin's semblance is. As Yang and Blake just say, we just want to talk. Amity Coliseum is for a new communications tower. Robin's very confused by this, and now we find out what her semblance is. She holds out her hand to Blake, and upon taking her hand, Robin's aura seems to kind of connect both of them together. Now, I thought back in episode 5 that her semblance was something like persuasion, because she held out her hand to Clover and held out her hand to RWBy and Crow and asked them questions. Now, it seems like Robin needs to be in physical contact to use her semblance, which is essentially a lie detector. Blake repeats the exact same thing that she said before. Amity Coliseum is being used for a new communication tower. And the aura glows green. Green speaks the true, as green obviously means it's true, and she's surprised. You're telling the truth. Well, what is this then? Why are these people trying to frame Atlas as, you know, the person who's silencing all the people in Mantle and killing all these people, etc.? Well, they can't tell her that at that point, because that would involve revealing the truth of Salem and etc., etc. It's kind of difficult. But Robin's going to find out eventually, and she actually says, you know, I'm not going to stop until I find out the truth. So Robin's still going to be a problem after this point, but at least there's some trust built between Blake, Yang, and Robin, so we'll see how that turns out. And now we cut to something that is extremely important. We cut to the vault underneath Atlas Academy. We see the vault, which is actually very, very nice. It's a beautiful bluish color and the flames that are along the side and everything. And we see the vault that houses the Staff of Creation. It's a really beautiful room, I gotta say, but we find out that, oh, the Staff of Creation is used to hold Atlas floating, to keep it in the air. It's not actually gravity dust. The Staff of Creation is essentially like an unlimited power source, but and was the inspiration for the Amity Coliseum project, but they're going to have to do that the old-fashioned way with dust and etc. But this was Ozpin's idea, to use the Staff of Creation to keep the city of Atlas floating. And apparently, Ironwood says that Ozpin theorized that they could go as high as they wanted. So this could go one of two ways. One, Staff of Creation is going to be removed. The way that I think it's going to go, and Atlas is absolutely done for at that point. Staff of Creation removed, there's no way to keep it floating. It's going to hit the ground. Atlas, of course, being the thing floating, is going to be destroyed. And Mantle being the thing underneath Atlas, hopefully it's not right in the path of collision. The shockwave alone is going to do a massive amount of damage, but things are not going to go well in Atlas. Like, all of the relics by the end of the series are going to be taken out of their vaults. I see that as pretty much a guarantee. Maybe not the relic of choice, as that one's kind of a wild card, it seems, in the relics, but I'm pretty sure Creation is going to be taken out. Atlas is going to fall. Or maybe it'll be thrown into overdrive and Atlas will just float into the atmosphere, eventually floating into the sun or something like that. Again, not really something I see happening, not really something I see as likely, but you can't rule it out as a possibility. If Ozpin theorized that they could just go as high as they want, technically it's possible. So, you know, depending on how you want to do things, that would also completely take out one of the relics from the world of Remnant, and then the gods could never be called again, and technically Salem would have free reign at that point. Maybe. Unless her entire goal is to, of course, just destroy everything with the gods, including herself, which could be, but I'm getting a little bit off pace here. Now, Ironwood and Oscar seem to have a little bit of a conversation, in which Ironwood says, you know, I hoped bringing you here would jog some of your memories. And he also mentions that eventually you won't be able to tell one person from the other. Ironwood's not really being very sensitive of Oscar's feelings at this point, as that's something he's been worried about the entire time. But Oscar does offer some advice to Ironwood by saying, you know, this path that you're on does not lead anywhere good. But Ironwood, he remembers how he felt at Beacon Academy, that even with all of his soldiers and even with all of the military that he had at his command, he never felt more helpless when Salem just showed her image of the Black Queen just to essentially say, I am here. Not the way that All Might does it, a lot more sinister, probably more like All for One type thing. But, you know, we'll see how that plays out, because Oscar does offer him some more advice by saying, you know, the worst thing isn't to lose to Salem. The worst thing would be more to lose your humanity. And Ironwood says that might be Salem's greatest advantage, that she may not have fear, may not have hesitation, but, you know, if he knew of the Lost Fable, he would know that she was at one point human. It's just she's been corrupted since then. So I feel like truth is going to come out eventually. And Oscar offers even further advice that, you know, Ironwood does ask him, do you trust me? Oscar says he does, but not only him. He trusts others as well, and the best choice for Ironwood would be to sit down with those he is most worried about and talk. Well, sounding a little bit like Ozpin there, but as they go back up the elevator, Winter and Penny are waiting for them with a letter in hand. Jacques Schnee has invited everyone to dinner, where Ironwood will now have to defend his seat on the council. And this is where the episode ends, but this dinner party, which is likely going to take place next episode, which I think is going to be 2 weeks from now, as I think next week is going to be the break. Don't quote me on that. I don't exactly know. If you do know, let me know down in the comments. I want to know exactly when the break actually is. But this dinner party, I'm hoping it's at the Schnee Manor and we finally get to meet Mama Schnee. However, I'm expecting that Watts might show up, or is at least going to be operating in the background of the Schnee Manor, and it would be really interesting if actually Tyrian showed up there and then started wreaking havoc. I doubt that's going to happen, but I feel like Watts is going to be in the background at some point, maybe make himself public? Not exactly sure, but this dinner party, I'm hoping we see Mama Schnee, and is going to be very interesting. If everyone is invited to dinner, Winter, Penny, Ironwood, Oscar as well, I'm guessing, considering Winter said everyone, maybe all of Team RWBy, the Aesops, everyone as well. I mean, the Schnee Manor, they can definitely afford that much of a meal, but I'm curious to see who's all going to be there, as well as maybe meeting the other council members. This would be the first time in the RWBy series where we actually see all of the members of a council of a kingdom all in one place, which again could lead to Tyrian possibly taking out the entire council, or at least a good portion of it. But that will remain to be seen in the next episode. Now, we can learn a lot from this episode, as I've mentioned throughout the review already, but one thing is very apparent. We need to learn a lot more about semblance and aura, because I never considered it possible before that someone's semblance could essentially create a pocket dimension through their aura, like what Fiona can do currently, and we need to know more about that semblance specifically. It seems like everything in the truck itself, as well as the supplies, were broken down to its molecular components. When it's spit back out, does it stay as its molecular components, or does she spit out an entire truck? How much can she store in her aura? Is it, infinite? Like, can she store an entire skyscraper, an entire building? Like, how much could it be? There's obviously a limit to some point, but considering she can store an entire truck with its contents is enough already. Not to mention, what happens when her aura is broken? If Tyrian runs up to her again and breaks her aura, is a giant truck going to come out and hit him? How exactly does this work? I mean, if that happened, that would be hilarious, but still. Not to mention, the other happy huntresses are very skilled as well. May's semblance of being able to project her aura outward in a very wide sphere and controlled area that doesn't seem to be centered around herself, which is another interesting thing to note, and it doesn't seem very taxing on her to do this, is so useful. The happy huntresses are all very skilled. We knew that. They were experienced, but their semblances are amazing. We know Robin's now, that is essentially a lie detector, which is very useful, except she has to be in contact with the person, which is a bit of a flaw, or a bit difficult to do, because enemies probably won't let them get in contact with her, but if she captures them and is able to lay a hand on them, that's enough. Now, the last happy huntress, we don't know her semblance, probably going to be revealed later in Volume 7, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, the most important thing probably about the episode, that the Staff of Creation is lifting up the Kingdom of Atlas, which, as I already mentioned, pretty much dooms Atlas. That seems fairly cut and dry. The relics are going to be removed throughout the RWBy series. Atlas is going to fall. Probably this volume. But the fact that the Staff of Creation is essentially an infinite supply of energy is very interesting. We don't know if there is another, essentially, genie of the lamp, or in this case, genie of the staff, that is held within the Staff of Creation. It seems as though this was just an inherent power, that the staff itself is just radiating energy that can be used to keep Atlas floating. So it might not operate in the exact same fashion as Jin does, where there's 3 questions that are able to be asked. It may not be that there's 3 requests that you can make of the Relic of Creation to create something. Maybe it's always just emitting this power of creation, which I don't know if this is the case. Like, if the relics work on a similar fashion, I'm probably going to make another video on this over the next couple weeks during the break between episodes, but if the Staff of Creation is constantly emitting power, but still has the genie within it that can take requests to create 3 specific things, which I think is the case at this point. Because the relics, I would assume, all operate under similar rules. That if one has a actual sentient entity within it, being Jinn, I feel like all the other ones should have something similar as well. I don't see any reason why they would be different. So if the Staff of Creation is constantly radiating the power of creation or radiating energy, the Lamp of Knowledge could be doing something similar. Possibly whoever is holding it could be gaining some knowledge from it, or it could be radiating knowledge or something like that. We know that Oscar is currently in possession of the relic, though I don't think he had it on him at that time, so I'm wondering where exactly, like, had it on him when he was in the vault with Ironwood, so I'm wondering where exactly he has it located. But regardless, maybe Oscar's wisdom that he was giving Ironwood, it could be coming from the merge that is already taking place between Oscar and Ozpin. It could also be coming from the Relic of Knowledge itself, that it is bestowing wisdom upon him, wisdom beyond his years. Though it could be from either one, honestly. But it's something interesting that I'm thinking about, and I would like to know what you guys think as well. Now, it does also seem apparent, as I also mentioned, that Watts is going to target Pietro. They had a connection that seems, you know, kind of obvious. I was thinking that was the case from early on, that Pietro and Watts were connected in some way, as Watts was a head scientist in Atlas. He knew Jacques Schnee, so he was obviously in the upper echelon of Atlas itself. So it's no surprise that they have a connection. But Watts hating Pietro, not really much of a surprise either, but I feel like Watts is definitely going to target him. So the future is not looking too bright for Pietro, unfortunately, but hopefully things will play out so at least either him or Penny survive. I don't really want to see it that both of them die. I don't think Pietro's surviving to the end of the Atlas arc, unfortunately. After seeing his aura, I don't think he's going to survive. Whether Watts does end up getting to him, or Watts ends up sicking Tyrian on him, or Pietro ends up sacrificing the rest of his aura to revive Penny a final time, not really sure. Now, with the origin of Penny, though, that Pietro can use parts of his aura to give Penny essentially a full aura is very interesting. Maybe a synthetic human or a robotic body does not need a full soul to generate a full aura. I'm really curious onto how exactly this works, because Pietro still has what looks like over half of his aura, judging by the holes that we see in there, but I'm guessing it's probably a lot less than that, considering he can't do it again. But Penny only has parts of his aura. Every time she's destroyed, that part of her aura is gone, I guess, and Pietro has to give up a new part to restore her. So if Penny is ever actually, like, fully shut down, she loses her aura completely. She has to be perpetually running to do that, because when she was in the laboratory, she was kind of in a hibernation state, not actually shut down. So I think maybe she has to be perpetually active to keep that aura active. Otherwise, it just deactivates and kind of fizzles into nothing. There's a lot of questions that are raised by this episode, but I'm glad we got clarification on some of Tyrion's past, that, you know, he was a serial killer in Anima beforehand. I still think he originated in Vacuo, and that's where he got his murderous tendencies, but still, Penny's origin and how Pietro gave up his aura for her, connection between Pietro and Watts, the Staff of Creation being, you know, limitless power, essentially, which is problematic in its own right. Also, guaranteeing the fall of Atlas. A lot of things that we learned from this episode. But enough of my rambling. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is there anything that I missed in this review? Do you have anything to add? Do my ideas make sense? Or do you have anything to expand upon the ideas that I mentioned? I'm really looking forward to seeing and hearing what you guys think and discussing with you in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you want more RWBy content. And with that, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.